Hey everybody, welcome back to Remodelaholic. I'm Justin. In this video, I'm going to show you how I upgraded my table saw workbench fence to be able to cut wood up to 50 inches wide. The first thing I need to do is get this table saw level where the new fence is going to be attached to the workbench. I will leave a link in the description box below where you can pick up this fence and also a link to the blog post with more detailed information. I moved my workshop into a different garage, and the floor in this garage is very uneven, so I've got to make sure it's nice and level across where the fence is going to be attached to the workbench. Now that it's all leveled, I'm going to remove the fence from the table saw. And this is the original fence that came with my table saw that I've had on this workbench for a while. I opened up the box of the table saw fence and laid out all the pieces, got familiar with them. There were a lot of pieces I ended up not using, and I wanted to make sure the pieces that I had that were going to work, and also if I needed to go get more parts. So there are parts that I'm not going to be using because of my table saw and how I have it arranged on this table. So I'm not going to attach any back rails. It won't change the quality of the cut by not having it. It's just there for the end of the fence to slide on. There's also the hardware that goes with it. We're not going to be using that either. My main focus is just right here. I'm going to be attaching the rail here. The fence itself, it has this little bumper. It's just going to sit on the table saw and go back and forth like that. So this is the distance for your holes where they need to be cut. And then this is how the bracket needs to sit on the table saw. Alright, so here's what we've got so far. I've got this kind of roughed out where I want it to go. I needed to kind of dry fit it to make sure things are going to work properly. And so the next thing I'm going to do is, right here I have a little bit of a problem. The holes in my table saw right here and here aren't lined up exactly. So I've got to cut a new hole lined up with this so it sits in the center right here. So what I'm going to do is right here I'm going to cut a 3/8 hole through this metal so then I can get this bracket properly aligned right here. So I don't have to adjust anything on the fence itself. I'm just adding a new hole to the table saw. So I went out and I bought a new setup of bolt and washers and nuts. So this is the only piece I really had to go buy to be able to anchor on to the table saw. They didn't have the proper setup, and they talked about that in the instructions. So the first thing I need to do is attach these brackets to the table saw. So this piece goes on first. This little adjustment screw goes underneath there. So I've got a washer and the bolt. Actually, and I've got this lock washer and then that. So this little screw right here adjusts the up and down of the fence, and it needs to be about 1/8 of an inch below the top of the surface. Right here I'm setting up the bar to make sure it's going to be in the proper location to be able to be zeroed out up against the saw blade when the fence is in place. Alright, so what I'm noticing is there are a couple holes underneath here. So you have some options. There's this hole or this hole. I'm going to have to move mine over to here. Alright, so this zero line needs to be approximately right here. That's about 5 3/8 away from the right side of the saw blade. So in order to do that, I had to move over this bolt to this hole instead of that one, which means I put my hole in the wrong spot, cutting it on the table saw. So I'm gonna have to drill another hole right next to it so that I can get this screw centered on that bracket. Alright, so that is 16.5 inches away from this hole. I should have just paid attention to the instructions to begin with, and that would have saved me cutting that. But now we have that there. Put this bracket back. Okay, now that I got the bar in place, I'm going to assemble the fence and attach it to the bar. I noticed that the fence wasn't quite square to the blade, so I made some measurements and I noticed that the bar was not perfectly parallel to the table saw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this washer in between the bracket and the table saw and see if I can make this work, because it's about a 1/16 of an inch off. Alright, now I'm going to anchor this side of the bar to the bottom of the table saw. And I've used a piece of wood right here at the thickness that I want it to be able to maintain that clearance, so when the table saw fence comes over it doesn't slide on top of the table. And I also have it, this distance is equal all the way down to the other end. Okay, so I realized something that I needed to change, and I think I made it better. So what happened is at the end of this, there was this little bumper thing sitting underneath there. Well, problem is this works with that back rail, and since I'm not using that back rail, I need to remove this because it makes too big of a gap off the table saw. So like if you're cutting 1/4 inch wood, it's gonna slide underneath the fence. So you want the fence to hover above the table about a 1/16 of an inch. So nothing too much higher than that. I'm actually trying out these little pads right here. These are furniture pads. They're a little bit more than an 1/8. So I'm gonna have to see if I need a smaller pad. It's actually really nice to have the pad. It slides well on top of this table. So I'm gonna leave it and see if I need to change it later. And then I wanted to double check and make sure that this wasn't above a 1/4 of an inch. And right now it is. So what I'm gonna have to do is adjust these and drop it down, probably 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. And then if I'm going all the way over here, I want to check that as well. So I'm about 5/16. So I'm going to have to add a couple washers underneath these bolts that I put in there just to lower all of this down. So if I use 2 washers, that'll be about 1/8 of an inch. And that'll finalize the fine tuning of the vertical adjustment. And then I'll come back and I'll zero out the fence and make sure it cuts exactly perfect every time I move the fence. Alright, I made all those height adjustments, and now it's between an 1/8 and a 1/16 underneath the fence. So that looks really good. So now what I'm going to do is zero this out and make sure that this is exactly where it needs to be. Thanks for watching the video, and be sure to click on this video here to see more information about the table saw workbench. So please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video.